All right, everyone. Tara, yeah!
Good old Sojourner truth? Well, she's a woman us Negroes been talking about forever. Her real name was Isabella Bonfrey, and she was born all the way back in 1797 in Ulster County, New York. At 9, she was sold off into slavery into the meanest master's house. He beat good old Sojourner because she didn't speak no English. And then finally, she was sold off to another master who did unspeakable things to Miss Bonfrey. But then, in 1815, she fell in love with a handsome young slave named Robert. But them slave owners, they didn't like no slaves of theirs sneaking around with other slaves. You see, for them, it was a property issue. And then she was sold off to 4 more owners, until in 1826, with her little girl Sophia in hand, they marched off into freedom. And finally, Miss Bonfrey met some nice folk. The names were Isaac and Maria. And it was after she met them, she decided to become a preacher. Now, something to know about Miss Bonfrey was she always had the right words to say, and she knew exactly how to say them. And in 1846, she decided to change her name from Isabella Bonfrey into the famous Sojourner Truth. She proclaimed to preach about truth and work against injustice. And in her life, she fought and she represented for us here slaves. She would often testify against the demeaning nature of slavery and the redeeming power of faith. And through all her troubles and all her sacrifices, she claimed that the good Lord Jesus changed her life. And she worked endlessly against all sorts of movements, speaking about the abolition of slavery, discussing rights of freedom, and most importantly, she preached and educated about women's rights. She was intimidated by no one. No one got in that woman's way. She was able to win 3 lawsuits as a woman and an illiterate ex-slave. Plainly speaking, Miss Sojourner Truth, she was a legend. And in 1851, she spoke on behalf of women's rights at a convention in Akron, Ohio. And that speech she gave proved to make her the most influential black abolitionist, not only for blacks, but for women. She was like nothing we had ever seen before. And let's see here why. Well, children, but there must be so much racket. There must be something out of the kilter. I think that twice the Negroes of the South and the women of the North and all this talk about rights, well, the white man will be in a fix pretty soon. What's all this here talk about? That man over there says that women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and have the best place everywhere. Well, no man ever helps me into carriages or lifts me over mud puddles or gives me any best place, and ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arms. I have plowed and planted and lifted in the barns, and no man can head me. And ain't I a woman? I could work as much. I could eat as much as a man. And when I could get it, I could bear the lashes well. And ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children and seen most all of them sold off into slavery. And when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me, and ain't I a woman? Now, they talk about this thing in the head. What's that they call it? What's that, honey? Intellect. That's right, honey. Now, what's that got to do with women's rights, with Negroes' rights? If my cup can measure but a pint, and yours measures but a quart, now wouldn't you be mean not to let me have my half measure full? Now, that man in black there says women can't have as much rights as men because Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from? Where did he come from? He came from God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with him. If the first woman God ever created was strong enough to turn the world upside down, these women together, ought to be able to turn it back and get it right side back up again. And now they's asking to do so. And you men better let them. Well, obliged to you for hearing me today, because good old Sojourner ain't got nothing more to say. See?